And we're back with the rise of the green tide, as the Orcs have finally made an undefeated appearance once again, as well as Dreadbot making a bit of a splash. So today we'll talk about the undefeated Orc player. Also look at another Orc list that did quite well, and just talk about Orcs overall, what we think about them going forward. Are they too strong? Are they fair? And is it truly the rise of the green tide? So everybody, it's time to get stuck in, lads. So Orcs have been, get on everybody's radar finally. And is it because we're going too well or we're going too strong? That's for us to discuss today. So chat, make sure you guys get involved. Let me know what you think, how you're feeling about Orcs. I get a lot of back and forth from the community. Well, people are really happy. People are still really upset. Let me know what you're thinking, where you feel right now. But of course, before we go forward, we got to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Baron of Dice. So check out our Wall Tactic Dice in the description. There's 5% discount in the description because nobody likes taxes. So help us out and check out the Baron of Dice because they have great quality dice and they help us do our paint competition so that we can get back to the community and have a great time getting stuck in with that. So of course, shout out to our sponsor, Baron of Dice, and let's get back to the tactics. So boys, Orcs, did appear with actually have someone who went undefeated. You can see we have an X-1. Oh, is my mic back to normal now? Did I fix it? So we good? We good? That was weird. I might have pressed the mute button like a fatty. So Orcs are back on the menu, 5-0 finally with the listing. And looking at it, it's the listing is we have a lot to say on there, right? But thank you to chat, by the way. I did have a little fat button on. So only one appearance, right? So we have 36 Orc players. You guys can see right here on screen that I pulled this out. Shout out to Meta Monday, of course. 36 Orc players, yet only one person that actually went X-1 ended up being the one person that went undefeated. So what does that actually say, right? Do we actually face some real barriers at the really, really, really top, right? As we went looking and predicting into what was to come, what are we actually seeing here with happening with Orcs? So we have Green Tide, only a couple players there. So look, one player going with a good win rate. War Horde with 14 players. Dread Mob with 8. Bully Boys with 8. That's holding up quite consistent, where they're usually about tied with their reflections. For some reason, Bully Boys just dropping. I'm not sure if it's just, actually, the real reason I think Bully Boys are dropping is because for the most part, the meta is really, really well equipped to deal with Deathwing Knight Terminators, deal with vehicles. Now they're going to be teching into dealing with Death Guard Terminators. So just trying to kill something that's toughness with 3 wounds. I mean, even Custos. We've seen Custos do well in an event this weekend too. They're teched into killing what Bully Boys are. Bully Boys lack screening. It just ends up becoming, not screen clearing. For the most part, everything that goes forward is a value and pretty, easy to kill for the most part in terms of 40k. So Bully Boys just seem to still be hitting a wall right now. Not that you can't do good with them because having double wall is just super powerful, but we see this constantly where it goes up and then it flows back down for Bully Boys. So I just want to point that out. And shout out to the lads that are still trying to play the Hunt and Cult of Speed. So the Hunt's right there where it's close, right? We would love for the Hunt to work properly, right? In terms of properly, I'm doing quotes here if you're just listening, that, they actually worked as a anti-vehicle detachment because Orcs really, would love that because we don't really like high toughness units, and it would give beast nagas that reinforced and lacking that they have with, hey, they need some more AP, right? It'd be very easy for that, and yet the Hunt just is a little off. And it was brought to my attention that GW most likely won't really address this, as we already have pretty good options. If you even look at the first 4 here, right? The fact that we have Dread Mob, Bully Boys, War Horde, and Green Tide as options means, for the most part, I wouldn't be too hopeful, right? Not that I'm negative usually, right? But I wouldn't be too hopeful that GW is going to go back and make all 6 of our detachments playable, right? So shout out to the guys who are still trying to make the Hunt work, and as well as Cult of Speed with those 25 and 20% win rate. They're just really not in a good spot. And if you're playing them, it's mostly just for fun. So I'll give you love for that. But let's talk about, of course, wait no further, let's talk about the winner of the Winchester 40K GT. So, of course, this was in England. So we have, let me make sure, I don't miss anything. Yeah. Each table, they have ITC rankings, making sure that they have it. Okay, so I'm pretty, as always, they usually, if anybody's here in the chat, question me or anybody in the future, I'm assuming it's something like UKTC terrain, right? Because in the UK, England.
So for that, I actually have like an example of someone's not ever seen as an American watching this, what UKTC terrain looks like, right? It could be WTC. I'm going to read it again in a second, but UKTC right here, we have, it's a bit more open, as some people would call it, in shooting than WTC. WTC is a bit more compact, hard for vehicles to get around. And in some places, you can see here on this UKTC terrain, there's just big open, like in this middle objective, you can see it's completely barren. There's nothing hiding it, nothing touching it, which is kind of common. But then you see over here, each of those objectives have an L. So, oh, here's Joshua Collard, actually. Oh, yeah, nice. Okay, so he did make it himself. I was going to read that too, because right here it says each table will have 14 pieces of terrain, high quality terrain. 6 will be obscuring light, being up to 8 inches wide and 9 inches tall, with a custom terrain pack that's been thoroughly played throughout tournaments. So it's been registered with ITC. All right, cool. Thank you, Josh, for bringing there. Some hefty big ruins. So if you have that, Joshua, you can send it to me in Discord, and I'll and shout out to you for being here. If you do have it, whatever. If you don't, it's cool. Then I can actually try to show it, right? So thanks you for that. He goes, big hefty ruins, but quite some potent fire lanes. So maybe it was a little bit of an imitation of GW terrains, Joshua. Maybe a little bit closer to GW terrain. So shout out to him for being here. Let's take a look at, I actually have his list already. So that he ended up being here. So let's look at his War Horde list. And let's give a shout out to Gazgul Thraka. Whoa, let's go. I love seeing Gazgul Thraka perform on list, and the fact that he's on the list that ended up going 5-0 finally after all this time just feels right. It just feels mighty. It feels just. And not that I'm going to give myself credit for Joshua Collard at all for any of his list understanding and design, but let's just remember that this looks very similar to like Index Hammer guys, right? Where we were talking about Index Hammer, where there was truck spam, and that for the most part, first people said, well, I'm just going to go heavy MSU. And then they realized, hey, actually having gas makes a huge difference, because there's sometimes where you really just have a problematic unit, and gas is sometimes the only way you can really get through that. Or it just enhances the wall where it really just breaks the opponent's back, right? Orcs, people don't really think about Orcs like this, but it's like a shock assault army where it wants to come in, hit you once really hard, break your back, and then just kind of still remain and exist and score enough points that you can't really come back and kill them fast enough. Gas allows that for the most part, and actually allows you to get that final execution mortal blow on somebody. So let's talk about his list. We have Gazgul Thraka, 2 beast bosses, 3 war bosses, 2 beast 10-man beast snagger units. I love that they're 95 points. Absolutely loved it. 105 was always okay, but it still was too much. 95 feels excellent. A 10-man unit of boys at 80 points, something else we all appreciate. 3 by 5 flash gets units. I've totally been in love with doing this. I've been doing a Dread Mob just because I'm personally playing Dread Mob, but I love 5-man flash gets units, right? 10-man, they end up being a little bit unruly, quite large. They have larger bases. And for the most part, you're already kind of using your transports in other ways, and for the most part, these other ways are SWAT teams, which is why the 5-man units are quite effective. So as you can see on this list, he has 3 SWAT teams. So we have 3 5-man units of knobs, followed by 3 5-man units of flash gets. He has 3 minimum size units of Gretchens. I love that he's going for as many units as possible of these of Gretchen. Sometimes people still just don't appreciate them, right? When you're a little bit of a newer player, you're like, why do I need so many Gretchen guys? I got my 10. No, trust me, having more is usually going to be always viable at some point in your 40K career. He has only 2 Mega Knobs for gas, because that's really all you need for the bodyguarding. If you pay for that third, it's like a kind of premium. A Storm Boys unit, and then of course we have 5 trucks. Yes, absolutely love that we have 5 trucks. So we're back at it again, boys. We have the truck spam. Shout out to Joshua for that. So pretty much he's saying it was hefty terrain with the rules. It was not UKTC, it was not GW, and it was not WTC. Just putting that out there for anybody. That's what Joshua just told us. So it was just tested, proper terrain, where they had the, like I just said, 14 pieces of terrain on this, so it is quite dense, and he said it was quite hefty, but had a good shooting lane. So in my head, it's kind of feeling a little bit maybe like GW terrain, a little close to, like, right? So let's take a look at our boys' path to victory. I always find that very important, because he started off going into Space Marines Gladius Task Force. People always talk about how Space Marines, let's say, are one of the lowest winning armies. I can understand that because they're more like an entry-level army for people. They really don't have bad rules. So never sleep on a Space Marine player if you're an Orc player, but do understand that I do think this is one of our more favorable matchups. So we just because they're low toughness means that our volume really, really breaks their back. So we have Apothecary Biologist, fire that's been Captain and Terminator Armor, Chaplain, Judiciar. Judiciars are super common, so start getting acquainted with Fight First, guys. We have an Assault Intercessor Squad, a big 10-man unit. And then we have 2 Jump Pack Assault Intercessor units, a large Blade Guard unit, an Eradicator Squad, a brick. It looks like, yep, we got an Eradicator brick, 200 points. Infiltrators, 3 Scouts, and then a Terminator, followed by a Redeemer and a Repulsor. Pretty standard archetype of Space Marines right now. Got to have the Eradicator, super effective kind of unit. As you can imagine, though, like I was saying, how Orcs could just go great into Space Marines. Having a bunch of SWAT teams where you're going to be just going into a bunch of T4 units, a couple T6, right? You do have Eradicators, but nothing that war bosses can't really handle. And Flash gets having flat 2 damage, lethal sustain means you could just be chipping Space Marines away. Scouts can't really get away from you in other ways that if people don't have any kind of shooting can't. And these Judiciaries even not really hidden behind something durable, right? And not to mention, you still have gas. So something like a Terminator, the Land Raider, Redeemer aren't as terrifying, knowing that you can actually just run up into it and break its back. So I really love to see that. And of course, we know about the combo critical 5s, gas, lethal, of course, rerolling. Fishing, that means you could break its back in other ways if you just tag the repulsor on the same shot, right? Gas could take out the Land Raider, and then Snaggers and the Beast Boss can take out repulsor if you're lined up like that. I think just simply Orcs to do quite well into Space Marines, right? So nothing there. Shout out to Joshua putting up a 99-point win. Love to see that when you actually get just 1 point of the short of the 100. Dang it, but I still love to see a really good score right there. So shout out to you. Let's see the second game. He goes into the Leagues of Voltan. So I really, Joshua, if you're still here, let me know. Did you go first in this matchup? I want to know. Leagues of Voltan do a really good job at board control if they bring all the tools, right? So let's see what they got right now. We got the Iron Master. We have 2 champions, 1 warrior unit, which these guys are cool because they can combat squad and then break into like combat squad means to break apart and go into Sagittars. Only 1 Sagittar. Okay. 1 Thunderkin unit, 2 5-man units of Berserkers, 1 5-man unit of their Termin version of Terminators as the Hearthguard, 1 big brick of Terminators, followed by 2 land fortresses, 2 3-man units of Pioneers, and then 1 Jaeger unit. He said he went 5. He went first out of 5 out of 5 games. That's fantastic. For an Orc player, you really, really want that, right? So shout out to Joshua. That's fantastic. Whoa for the initiative. So yeah, speaking of Leagues of Voltan, so something I really like to see here more, not that I was playing Leagues of Voltan, but when they have a lot more Sagittars, the Jaegers really stack with their ability, right? So Jaegers infiltrate, then Sagittars can really scout forward. They're T10, they're pretty tough. Guys can drop outside of them. These Thunderkin are pretty cool, for damage wise. They hit on 4s. They have feel no pain, stuff like that. There's not as much chaff here as I would normally want if I was a Leagues of Voltan player going into Orcs. And in this case, something like a land fortress, because he doesn't really have that much stuff. He would want to take a land fortress and really stick it in the middle of the table and try to bait out enemy armies, because a land fortress is typically hard for the enemy armies to lodge, to take out a place, right? To just get out of the middle of the objective. Knowing that Leagues of Voltan are always going to have this Terminator brick in reserves, it's always going to want to come down. The Pioneers always want to play off the battlefield edges. So their game is a lot about moving up forward, making up space for their Terminators, units that are within transports, and then really getting the initiative off on you, getting them grudges. And if things do die like their Jaegers, then they're just getting a grudge token for that. So them applying their grudge tokens matters a lot. Yet if you're inside transports and you're just kind of staging up around and they're having a hard time actually getting off on you when they want, and you have to actually go get to choose the selections and killing things, that kind of slows their role. They can't really gain momentum in the way they want to, and then you get to stage up, punch them off the middle table if they choose to kind of try to check you. Because how I'm reading this list, in my case, is that he has 2 of these land fortresses because he would, in some matchups, put one of them forward if the enemy can't really kill them, because he really doesn't have a lot of small units or a lot of the dedicated Sagittars, right? A lot of you guys know that the Leagues of Voltan would bring 4, 5 Sagittars, and now they're going backwards into the fortresses, but because they think their fortresses are quite durable. They're not durable to gas, and they're not durable to gas plus a beast boss in War Horde. And then just we're staging up the field everywhere. So I love to see that. Interestingly enough, not sure where Leagues of Voltan is going to be sitting at like their basic archetypes going forward. I just know that if they do go into, hey, we're going to go more elite with bigger bricks and more fortresses, then Orcs with War Horde and Beast Bosses and Gaz are going to like that more than a bunch of little Sagittars, which are playing more MSU style of game. Having to kill multiple Sagittars is a little bit harder for us. But 94-point win, love to see that. Great job there by that. Going first, as Joshua said, on Leagues of Voltan, just running them over, hopefully. I love to see that. Mini Marines is what I call Leagues of Voltan. Shout out to Mini Marines. So in this third game, he went to Awakened Dynasty. So in this player, I believe this player ended up going 4-1 that Joshua took down, right? Who was it? Nikita? Yeah, see, he went second place. So Joshua took down a second place player. So I had to look up some of these rules, I guess, because I wasn't too familiar with Awakened Dynasty. I think I have it over here somewhere. Oop, maybe that wasn't here. Is this Awakened Dynasty? Oops, I might have moved too many rules, guys. Sorry. I'll come back to that in a second. Anyways. Oh, I took it down. That's fine. Pull it back up. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, chat. Do this live. You guys know that. So here's his list. So we have a Chronomancer with Veil of Darkness. This is kind of like their uppy downy type of I believe enhancement. Hexmark, Destroyer, Luminous Caesaris. Which Luminous Caesaris is amazing for an epic character. Just want to point that out. I'll probably put up his data sheet here in a second if you guys are familiar with him. We have an Overlord with Enigma, Dermal Bond, Plasmancer, and then this Casket. So this guy can get a 4-up Feel No Pain is one of the enhancements. He has 3 10-man units of Immortals, a Reanimator, Scorpec Scarabs, some Crypto Thralls, which these guys stick to the Warriors of Immortals, I believe. We have the Doomsday Arc, 3 of those Doomsday Arcs. So Doomsday Arcs have 2 of these Gauss Flare arrays, which means they get a volume of 20 shots. These are strength 4, but I believe they're lethal. And then they get their Doomsday Cannon, which the Doomsday Cannon is, I believe, strength 14, D6 plus 1 shots with strength -3, flat 4 damage. So these guys are just gun platforms, essentially. They have a good amount of wounds, right? Good bulk of wounds, low toughness. I believe they're only toughness 9. Built-in 4-up invuln. They do heal, of course, if you don't one-shot them. But definitely be aware of them if you're an Orc player. They're at the perfect point cost right now for Necrons to be taking them. 2 units of Flayed Ones and then a Lich Guard unit. Lich Guard units are just pretty cheap, right? You got to expect either seeing these, maybe Praetorians are on the battlefield, just because they're cheaper in 85 points for T5 models that have decent armor saves and decent combat. So for the Awakened Dynasty, not too popular from all the Necron detachments that people would bring around, right? Set Awakened Dynasty right here. I did have them. I was pulling up that enhancement here. So Veil of Darkness, yeah, allows you to pick pretty much uppy downy here once you get to pick up the unit. And then the Cascade, you get stealth. So he's -1 to hit built into this. He can regen of these models. That's why he's maybe going for 10-man units as well on that. And he can improve the armor penetration of these models as well. So he's looking for a little bit of volume, shooting. Really interesting in that case. Not sure if this is going to end up taking off. Of course, you have Luminar Caesaris. That's what I was going to pull up. Because Luminar Caesaris, amazing data sheet for battle line units, right? Because he buffs battle line units as an epic character. Let me pull that up. I should have already had that pulled up, to be honest, chat. I'm ahead in my head, and then I didn't do it. So I'm doing it now. So Luminar Caesaris, and this is how it works, because normally Awaken, you're like, that's really not that good. But if you look at Luminar Caesaris, he assists. So one thing is, while this model is within 3 or more of friendly Necron units, he gains Lone Operative. He has a 4-up Feel No Pain. He is T8, he moves 8, 2-up armor save with the 4-up invuln, 9 wounds. So he's pretty much like a infantry version of Mazrog, but he's support of old Mazrog, but he actually supports infantry units near him. He gets a little bit of shooting at strength 9, -3, 3 damage. Maz didn't have any shooting. He has these melee arms that are 3 flat, 3 damage, -3, and then some impaling legs. But in this detachment, because he's playing Awaken, he gets low not for being around these battle line units that he then gives an aura to, where enemy friendly Necron battle line units within 3 of him improve an armor characteristic by 1, and then when they are targeted, they get built-in armor of contempt for simply being within 3 inches of him. All right. So yeah, and then at the end of the fight phase, if this model destroyed 1 or more models in this phase until the end of the battle, add 3 to the range of this augmentation ability. So it can actually get better the more he fights. So just know he's durable, he's infantry, so he can move through buildings, and he's really, really tough, and he's a character. So these 30 immortals, at least if 20 of them can stay within range of him, they're getting additional AP, they're getting a built-in armor of contempt on top of their normal abilities, on top of the Awakened Dynasty. So really, really a lot of volume there, and ability to shoot down different armies on top of having the boats, right? The boats are just devastating amount of volume right there as well, firepower as well. So there's volume and quality of damage as well within that. So shout out to Joshua for taking him down. I would like to know what mission that was. If you were in the Discord, Joshua, that would have been great to get that mission pack. So then we go into the 4th game. Oh, sorry. And what did Joshua score in there? 94-point win right there. Shout out to you, dude. Great job with the score there. Then we go into his 4th game, which is the Nurgle Demons Stinky Boys. So I have some familiarity with this list. So let's see what's going on here. Oh, and shout out to our boy Tyler Howells. Got my objective markers yesterday. Thanks, man. Whoa! I hope you like those objective markers. Thank you very much for supporting, and thank you for giving the super chat right here. So thank you very much, dude, for 6 months. Means a lot. Thank you for supporting the channel. And yeah, good job to Joshua, dude. Great job, because now the Orcs got the respect, and we finally got our win, our GT win that we had been eluding us for oh so long. So we have Nurgle Stinky Boys. We have the Great Unclean One with the 4 out Feel No Pain Endless Gift. So we have 1, 2, 3, simply 3 Great Unclean Ones. An Eronagus, so kind of like a 4th Great Unclean One, right? The epic name character. He does have an aura of reduce OC by 1. And mind you, these guys are going to have a 6 up Feel No Pain when they're within the shadow. Then you have 1, 2 units of Nurglings. The big brick of Nurglings is nice. 2 units of Plague Bears. These guys have sticky objectives. T5, 2 wounds apiece with the 5 of invuln. Decent, pretty decent overall, like in my opinion. And then mind you, something to sleep on here that people sleep on is that you think Nurgle, they'd be like slow and they can't do anything. Just keep in mind that they do have the strats to advance and charge. Something I have taken, have to deal with the brunt of. 2 units of Beast of Nurgles. These guys are pretty annoying because if you don't fully kill them, they fully regenerate in that one phase. 2 units of Plague Drones. The thing about the Plague Drones is once they spit on you, they allow the other Nurgle units to reroll wounds against you. So when I mean spit on you, it means that when they do their ranged attacks into you. And then overall, they're just quite durable. I believe they're T8. They have a good amount of punches. Some of them are damage 2 because they have a mount technically. They get to drop within 3 or 6 of you because of how this demon detachment pretty much works, like Russian nesting dolls, where the closer they get to you, more things can drop close to you. And then 2 units of Soul Grinders. One thing about these Soul Grinders, they do have indirect fire. I believe it's strength 7, -1, 2 damage, and they're also lethal. So you do have to be aware of that as an Orc player, that if this is a cunning Nurgle player, he's going to be looking for your Storm Boys for the most part, maybe even going for your Grotz and your home field objective if he wants to, just to start bombarding you if he can get just any T2 model. If your knobs are ever just staged up for some reason, he can just end up shooting these guys because he has indirect, with something not too common. Yeah, for them it's really easy. Not to mention his fighting, which of course WAAAGH also, that's another thing WAAAGH does, where he can pick a unit within range of them and then give them +1 damage, right? So the Great Unclean Ones can get +1 damage. He can give himself +1 damage. He can give the Soul Grinders +1 damage, which means all these guys can end up punching up. Not too reliable that they punch up, but they all do have lethal, right? So then these guys aren't super killing, but they can just spike killing potential. That's something that they can overlap with like kind of buffs, overlapping buffs, because they reduce your toughness and all these different things. So this is a sleepy, tough, strong army. The one thing that I would, this Beast Nurgle, they're pretty annoying for the most part. How this list pretty much plays is they try to stat check you, and the one thing that super hard counters them is Gaz's critical 5 lethals, Beast Naga Boys units. You're going to just run into this army. If both of your Beast Naga Boys are within range of 2 different Great Unclean Ones, and they're within range of Gaz's or on Gaz Assist, you can pretty much pick up 2 of these Greater Demons in one, in one wall, no problem. And then you still have other things that can go around the battlefield and punch around. You can pop flash kits, can pop lethal, and really do a lot of damage to Plague Drones or Beasts of Nurgle. Not to mention that the knobs actually have enough tough strength to get through both of those units and chew through them. Soul Grinders can end up being that weird, tough, annoying thing that's 100 for 80 points that if he's smart, he'll try to throw into you to bait out those beast bosses early, so his Great Unclean Ones can survive. But just know that this list does hit hard enough to be respected, but your transports allow you to stage up and really take them out because they're very slow once they're in place, right? The trucks allow you to stage all over the field when they come down. Not an easy matchup by any means. No, if the player understands how to get those overlapping supports from the Great Unclean Ones and Rodriguez, it's really a potent army. They have uppy downy all over the place, they advance and charging. So great job by Joshua for that. Love when you have Gazes and those Beast Naga Boys to punch up like that. And then certainly, do I have that? No, that was cool. And then last but certainly not least, we have the Genestealer. So this Genestealer person, so last person, I believe also, that Nurgle player, I think he ended up going 4-1 as well. I think if I can pull it up here. Oh no, he went 3-2. So he ended up going 3-2 as well. And then this player that we're gonna look at right now went 4-1. The Genestealer, 3-2. Then he ended up going 3-2 also. Maybe Josh was just beating everybody up out here. Nicholas. No, he went 4-1. That's what I thought. Okay. So this guy ended up going 4-1 also, just like that Necron player. So Joshua had a hard path to victory here. The players he was playing were respected. So this Genestealer guy only lost 1 game, and it was only to Joshua. So shout out to you. So we have 3 Abominants, 2 Clamavises, 3 Kelomorphs, a Patriarch, and Reductus Saboteur. Most people don't know what any of these guys are, so let's pull it up real quick. So we have a Abonant. Why am I having weird? Sorry, I was speaking incorrectly today. Either way, we have Abominant with a 5-up Feel No Pain. So this guy is pretty cool because when he dies on a 4-up Feel No Pain, on a 4 he gets back up. Actually destroyed. Sorry, on a 2+ he gets back up. Excuse me. He gets back up when he dies. And when these guys can fight on death on a 4+, excuse me, when he's leading those guys. So he leads Abrams. Abrams punch very respectably. So Abrams have strength 7, -2. They're subtract -1 to wound. They have a 5-up Feel No Pain. Their toughness 6 with 3 wounds of pop. So they're pretty much walking Feel No Pain guys. Remember, these guys can come back to life once they die. And then we have a Kelomorph. So Kelomorph is just annoying because he gets like free Overwatch essentially. Where once per turn in your opponent's movement phase, if you end within 12 of this guy, he gets to shoot you as if it's the shooting phase, and then he gets to move D6. So he gets to shoot you, and then he gets to run away. And his pistols, so he shoots you six times with strength 6, -2 or 1 damage. So not devastating amount of shooting, but there's like 3 of these guys. And then he can also make you choose to take battle shock tests, which orcs really don't like, right? Because we do care about our stratagems a lot. Then we have a Patriarch, which is essentially like a Broodlord, and then Reductus Saboteur, which does some mortal wounds to you. He has 3 battle line units with flame. Oh, actually more than that. Sorry, I said 3. What's wrong with me? He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 battle line units with flamers, and then 1 hybrid unit. He has a Goliath Chuck, of course. The 3 units of Aberrants, which hit really hard. We just spoke about, which are led by the Abominants. We have 2 units of Achilles Ridge Runners, 3 units of Achilles Ridge Runners, excuse me. These guys have overlapping abilities where they give additional AP if they shoot at the same targets. 3 units of Pierce Train. So these are just Genestealers to kind of scout up the field and start punching and be pretty fast. Just remember that as these guys die, they're coming back onto the field again. So the orc momentum really needs to be, keen here and consistent. And that means you need to not die too quickly in these exchanges, right? Because if you're diminished, then they can actually come back and kill you. Other than that, orcs actually have great profiles to kill all of these units, having a bunch of MSU knobs and flash kits, Beast Naga Boys all over the field. Then you have gas to really hold down the middle and really chin check any of these units. Well, if you're not familiar with the term of a chin check, it means you're checking someone's chin, right? And chins are notoriously known for knowing someone's durability, like you're talking about fighting, right? And Gaz saying, hey, you guys got 3 wounds and 5 up, feel no pain. Where I got a bunch of 4 damage punches on you with +1 to wound. Let's see what happens, right? So that's where the Orks can kind of continue to steamroll over this. Easier said than done, because you do have to be, respectful of their damage output, because if they do enough damage to you on that first run and a bunch of them come back on the table, then you end up kind of dying too quickly, and that's not controlling your rate of attrition, as we always talk about. So here we have, and actually Joshua's list actually had a 10-man unit boys too. Shout out to that. So an 85-point win there. So shout out to Joshua for getting 5-0 there, taking down the Genestealers. And let's take a look one more time at his list. So we have Galsco Thraka, 2 Beast Bosses, 3 War Bosses, 2 10-man units of Beast Snagga Boys, a Boys unit, 3 5-man units of Flash Kids, which are beautiful. I love them. Their volume of punches, their volume of shooting, their damage 2 in shooting, the ability to pop lethal. They're not relying on any detachment rules. They can play the game for what they are for 80 points. They're just great, interchangeable with boys, but they can actually reach out and do damage. Love it. 3 5-man units of those. 3 minimum size units of Gretchen, just because having a bunch of these 40-man units really helps right now, especially with all the deep strikes, uppy downies, trying to do secondaries where you have to stand in corners of the board or stand in terrain. You just have to have everything else really engaged. Having these Grots around allows you to do that. 2 Meganons for bodyguards, 3 knobs, because SWAT teams are fantastic. They haven't let us down since Index Hammer Boys. We have come full circle. And then 1 Storm Boy unit, followed by 5 trucks. The last thing I want to say is, guys, this really does look like Index Hammer, and Gaz really did make his appearance once again. Like I said, Gaz just does something for us that nothing else in our army can do, and it really just supports what Warhorde especially is trying to do. Can I tell you to play Gaz and other detachments? Does he work? Yes, but where he really shines and really does what is irreplaceable is in Warhorde, right? He can't really throttle the army like he can in Warhorde, just because his lethals stack so well with the same sustain on that one wall turn for that one knockout blow. So we had questioned, is Gaz going to be around? Are we just going to go for max amount of units? And it seems like, at least for the first winning players list, the answer is yes. It's time for the Warlord, Gaz Thraka, war, and Joshua Callward for his undefeated 5-0 victory. So thank you much, buddy, and great job to you. I'm very happy you used Gaz. I'm very glad you guys a bunch of SWAT teams. You shine bright like a diamond. Nerdy. So now we look at Dread Mob. So we have Nick Roberts Moore. So Nick Roberts Moore did end up going 3-1-1, so he did end up having to deal with a tie. But I like the fact that he was playing Dread Mob and playing in a little bit of a different way. So he was playing in London as well. Sorry, in the United Kingdom as well. I said London. Sorry, I mean that. In the United Kingdom as well, in England. Yes, and this one was the UK style TC terrain. So I'm going to show you guys if you guys haven't seen. I believe I had the UK style TC terrain up here. Boom. Okay, so if you haven't seen UK style TC before, here is how this terrain roughly looks. This isn't the backpack mission pack. I don't have this one for this event, but there's another one I had just so people can actually see the layouts. If you're American and you've never seen them, you want to put on GW terrain. A little bit different, like shooting angles, maybe a little bit more open than you might be used to. A lot of L's. So just be aware this is the kind of terrain that he was playing on for the most part when we're looking at it. So some people will say WTC's too dense for you to play big vehicles and things. I think UKTC seems to have like a moderate balance where people seem to bring Lehman Russes and battle tanks and big stuff. So I think you could play Dreadbot more likely in UKTC/GW terrain than WTC terrain, to make that clear. I've never made that clear enough, I think. So let's take a look at his list real quick before we look at his path to victory. So we have Dreadbomb making an appearance again on the success side of victory. So we have 1 Big Mac, and like we were saying before, the Big Mac actually does work for UKTC. Brian Sepp showed that to everybody when he brought 2 of them in with battle wagons, just because as we showed their terrain, and can I show that? Yeah, I can show it right here again. There are these places where it looks like, hey, people would want to stage up. Let's say a different mission pack where they're usually closer here. Sorry, guys. So let's say right in this middle objective, right? The Big Mac would actually help where if you're staging coming right out of your deployment zone, you're staging in that middle objective where the L shape is. When it's the wall time to go, you can move through that middle terrain, and you can actually move through people for the most part are going to line up against the wall, so you can't fight them. You can move through them if you have to actually pressure people off the middle in a way that you wouldn't be able to typically. With the new rules of engagement, or not new rules, but for the established rules of engagement with how I can stage off an inch off the wall, you stage on the other side of the wall, inch off the wall. Now we just simply can't fight each other. That kind of bypasses that using the Big Mac. I love that. And it gives the boys access to the button, right? Shout out to that. We have 3 Big Mac with shock attack guns. One of them would get find their goggles, so we know it's coming here with the Luda bombs, right? Boss Snickra, a mech, and then 2 war bosses, followed by 1 Zagrod Wartsnaga. I will probably never play Dreadmob without Zagrod Wartsnaga, in my humble opinion. I do like that we actually have some war bosses on here. It seems like people just decided we were just want some more good old-fashioned crumping, and nothing wrong with that. As for Boss Snickra, when you're dealing with Dreadmob, sorry, I'm kind of dry. One of their issues is they're typically kind of slow, right? Because Gretchen aren't really fast. Let's say if you did go for vehicles, our walkers, they're not necessarily fast. Ludas are, the DACA support, and they're not really moving. So nothing in our detachment allows us to be quick, fast, right? We're not even too reliant on transports. Therefore, having something like Zagra helps a lot for scouting, and then having something like Snickrot for your scoring potential, either early game and or late game, really does make a difference. I'm actually starting to decide to choose to put Snickrot maybe on my list once again for Dreadmob. We'll see, but I've already been trying to experiment it because I've realized that the more I play Dreadmob, like, hey, I could take advantage of maybe loan up a little more and uppy downy scoring potential. Well, what I thought was kind of interesting here is how he had a basic mech. Whenever you see a basic mech on a list without let's say a Titanic unit to really support, you can most likely just assume that the player is deciding I'm going to stick him in a battle wagon and then go and score secondaries with him later. It does make the battle wagon a bit better at shooting, right? So you do get your DACA wagon. Hitting on 4s is a significant difference for the volume of shooting it gets. But for the most part, it's kind of more about scoring secondary. So you can see he's another scoring secondary unit. So in a way, he went MSU style alongside of all the DACA style. So it's a bit different, right? Similar to what we were looking at with Warhorde, which a lot of little units, but in the same case, this is more of DACA maybe, right? With a bit of combat. So combined arms, as we like to say. 2 trucks, 2 bricks of 20 boys. I love to see 20 boys. And then 6 Gretchen units. Make sure I didn't mess this one up. Make sure because I was like, boy, I'm pretty sure his list was also like where the Grot love at or something like that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 battle line Gretchen units. Love to see that, good boys. If you're playing Dreadmob, I do think you need to take advantage of the Dreadmob detachment rule of battle line Grots. I've been playing with a bunch of bricks of them. You can play with a bunch of 10-man units of them, whatever, 11-man units of them, whatever you do. I do advise bringing at least 5 units of these. He went for the full 6. Then we have the battle wagon for the bricks of boys. Of course, the Big Mac boys and the war boss. 2 5-man units of flash kits. I love flash kits. Like I've been saying, 5-man units are exceptional. And then we have the 3 trucks, Luda trucks. Luda trucks. Sorry, the Ludas that I think maybe went inside of trucks. So I've been doing that since. Shout out to Mr. Jim Jones right here. Mr. Jim Jones. Yeah, Mr. Initiative. What's up, homie? So I've actually been doing this, but with 1 unit where you put them inside the trucks. Now, some people might say, well, you can put them in strategic reserves. You can just stage them in turn. They can walk out. Yes, of course, you can stage them in terrain. They just walk out. But if some people do have indirect, right? Some people do have minor indirect and can pick up Ludas. They're very soft. But on UKTC terrain, like we were just showing you, right, you can see how these actually work really well for coming in from reserves. Yet they also work really well for if you stage a truck in one of these L-shaped terrains, they simply drive out of it, disembark, and then the Ludas have open a line of fire to these different objectives, as these objectives can be a little bit more open, as you can see from here, right? As you can see. So I like to actually put Ludas inside of trucks for a similar reason, just because if I did do it, which I'm not sure if he did, but I assume he might have. If you do put Ludus Intrux, at least one of them, it does really help you gain line of sight earlier in the game or just in different objectives. Then maybe you're not able to with reserves at the moment. I do like that he has rockets on all of them. The game's pretty elite infantry heavy, so having just flat 3 damage, having a blast access, I'm all in favor of that as well. And then Storm Boys, just 1 unit of Storm Boys. I've been cutting down to 1 unit of Storm Boys when I'm playing Dread Mob too, just because you have so many Gretchen, right? So many Gretchen that anything that's not just simply far away, you know, the Gretchen are kind of doing it, and then you're kind of incorporating Snickrod or Zod, so they can maybe do something for you as well. So shout out to Nick for this one. Let's take a look at his path to victory, as he did go 3-1-1, but he did have an interesting path. So I just wanted to cover it anyways because Dread Mob ain't easy to play, boys. So we have his first matchup. He went into Dark Angels Gladius Task Force. We have Azrael, a lieutenant with combi weapon, and then Lionel Johnson. We have an intercessor squad followed by an assault intercessor squad, a brick of Blade Guard veterans, 2 bricks of Deathwing Knights, a Terminator squad, a Gladiator Lancer, Inner Circle companions, a scout, and a scout squad. Inner Circle companions are everywhere. Luckily, I think Orcs just straight up have volume, right? Like we always like to talk about around here. Volume are a key to victory as an Orc player for you to just respect and understand that. I know big high damage things are really cool, like on a Death Dread trying to punch you with those, 6 to 7 punches with their claws. But for the most part, you're usually just looking for volume in life, just because it helps bypass all these durability aspects that a lot of different armies have. Luckily, Space Marines have low toughness. I know these guys are -1 to wound, but they're still low toughness and not amazing armor save, just a 3-up armor save, which we live to get past. Another thing here is Dread Mob does actually give you answers for something like Deathwing Knights. Now, you can't actually, in this case, you're not using your mechs or your walkers for that. But something to keep in mind when you're going into Deathwing Knights and or Terminators is when they decide, and you know they're going to decide at some point to simply walk until those objectives. This is the time of the Overwatch for your looters, right? So for the most part, you're like, hey, when I'm shooting at these guys, I only have -1 AP. I'm playing with looters. What is going on? They get cover. They can armor of contempt. That is why you must understand that in the movement phase, when you declare Overwatch on this unit, they cannot pop armor of contempt because armor of contempt is in the shooting phase, right? So you can actually allow these guys to be taking proper 3-up saves instead, 4-up saves to your rockets if it's the actual Get Finder Goggles unit. So there's ways that you can kind of get around a little bit of their durability and take advantage if they just want to stand on the objective and just take the pain. So if they just want to do that and check you, then they want to chin check. They want to be chin checked by you, then go ahead and give that to them. Just do it in an intelligent way. Of course, we like the shock attack guns for their -4 AP to really help us with that. Just know that you're going to have to be prepared as an Orc player to deal with Lionel Johnson, Terminators, things like that. They're just commonly all over the place. It's a reason why I like Dread Mob. Dealing with Lionel Johnson, right? Being able to say, hey, Grotz, reactive move, haha, jump in the way, is something that is just irreplaceable when you actually get to that point. Or these Blade Guard veterans as well. So having screens, having a bunch of MSU play, and then having shooting potential, something players are not used to dealing with Orcs, does take quite the finesse, though, guys. Something that I must stress. That as you're playing Dread Mob, it's a Veneris finesse heavy list because you're not necessarily killing and back-breaking like a War Horde. He does have 2 20-man units of boys here, but 20-man units of boys aren't like just chopping through Lionel Johnson, right? Of course he can. You can get lucky. But it's more about what is he killing and taking advantage of, scoring primary, scoring, and just delaying this person and killing as much as he can. So in this one, he put 100 points up just because he just has so many units, guys. So many units, so much OC. I'm sure he can just shut things down for that get. Then we go to his second matchup. He goes into the Annihilation Legion. So this is like they're fighting. Oh, I just had a brain fart. I'm pretty sure for this detachment so I have Annihilation Legion. The other one, so Annihilation Legion is, this one gives you reroll charges. If you were watching the live stream earlier, we were talking about the other Necron detachment. Down was +1 to hitting, but led by characters. I should have mentioned that. So for this one, this is like their melee kind of hope to fight you. They have the Destroyer Cult, which are essentially the Necron Destroyers, and then their flayed ones. So they can re-roll the charge, and if you're below half strength, they get +1 in addition to that. So this is going to be mostly in your face pressure melee. We have a Katana the Nightbringer. We have Scorpek Lords. We have 3 of them, followed by Transcendent Catan. We have Annihilation Barge, a Doomsday Arc, very respectable shooting, good volume, flat damage 4 blast on their main cannon with -3 and strength 14, I believe. 3 units of flayed ones. These guys got twin linked. Just imagine kind of choppas for volume of punches. And I think they get to infiltrate, which is crazy, right? Crazy. Flayed, that it can really do a lot of damage here as an orc player. We have a Locust Destroyer followed by a Ophidian Destroyer. So these are like deep striking destroyers, kind of fast, not as hard hitting. And then 3 3-man units of Scorpek Destroyers followed by a Triax Stalker. So we have, I think I pulled these guys up. So the Scorpek Lord's T7 with 7 wounds, a 4 up invuln, 3 up armor save. He gives the unit lethal. And then also when he ends a charge, he makes you take mortal wounds. He does have some respectable fighting, nothing too amazing. It's strength 10, -33 damage with 4 attacks, and then 8 attacks on that. But the real kicker here is the Destroyers giving you the ability to actually pop devastating wounds. So they're giving it to him as well. And then it's just volume at this point, right? So we have when this model makes an attack, when this unit makes an attack, you get to reroll hit rolls of 1. And if you made a charge move, you can re-roll the hit roll instead. So you guys are hitting on 3s, but they're re-rolling the entire hit roll, and then they're getting lethals as well as that, and they're getting lethals and devastating. And each of these guys has 4 attacks for strength 7, -2 damage, on top of the strats that they actually get on top of this, right? Like if they're actually shot at in the shooting phase, they can make a normal move, so they have like their version of Blood Surge as well. Is something that you should point out, and then they can actually pile in 6 inches as well, so that helps them with at least the flayed ones move a little bit more involved in that case, and then they can activate the reanimation protocol when they've destroyed an enemy unit. Yes. So yeah, so it is a totally different way to play Necrons, because normally Necrons are playing like a hyper tech, like KG kind of game. So really surprising there. Probably if you're not used to it. So I can see how you can time there. 78-point time game right there. So then we go into his third game, where he goes into Death Guard. So Death Guard is the menace right now. Let's see what the version of Death Guard we have here. We have Typhus, Biologist Putrefier, a Foul Blightswan, a 10-man Brick of Plague Marines, a 2 units of 5-mans, a Cultist, 1 unit of Death Shroud Terminators, a Poxwalker, 2 Bloat Drones, 2 Plagueburst Crawlers, 2 Rhinos, a Beast of Nurgle, some Nurglings, and then 2 War Dog Brigands. So this guy luckily didn't have the potent max Death Guard Terminator bricks running around. Always keep in mind that this 10-man unit is built in fight first, critical 5+ lethal. They have good flamer overwatch with their flamer, with their character, and then their built-in weapons from their actual character like unit. Like right here, we have Plague Purers built into it. So just respect that as an orc player. They're going to be trapped inside of a rhino, so hard for you to actually get to them and like crack it. That's where Dread Mob actually helps as well, right? You can actually pop the rhino, and then when those guys try to make it up the field, you can overwatch them and deal with them in that way. And that's another thing that I really like about Dread Mob, is knowing that a lot of these armies are going to have making you pay additional CP when you get within range for their their Vect Aura, making you have to deal with Death Guard and their contagions and their stacking defensive buffs. Dread Mob feels it gives you more answers for all these things. With their reactive moves, feels like gives you answers for other melee pressure armies as well. So in this case, having a bunch of damage to weapons and going against a bunch of pretty much very slow Space Marine armies feels pretty good. You do have the floated bloat drones, but again, we have Dread Mob, right? We have big shells for bigger gets. Even the Big Mac with the boys can end up kind of choosing lethal and just kind of chewing through this, as a war boss can almost do it by himself. So having the Big Mac involved in there, and also the Big Mac has flat 3 damage, which is something we really like to see. Having 2 war bosses on this list for your 20 boys really helps. So if you're stacking those, -2 to hits, having shooting, so it makes it so you can actually kill these Nurglings. Luckily, only has 1 unit of them. And of course, it comes down to how is this person allocating their Plague Burst Crawler indirects? Is he actually killing your scoring units? Yet when you have 6 Gretchen units, how much how much is he really killing them, right? It did surprise me. I should double check, make sure Robert didn't have a brick, but Robert really didn't have the 20-man unit of Grots. Like I just triple checked just in case anybody was wondering. He was running Grot with Zod with simply a 10-man unit of Grots. So I should point out there is a chance that he was sticking Zod Grot with the 10-man unit of Grots into a truck, scouting forward, and then disembarking. If you're wondering if that works, yes, it does, because Zod will give the dedicated ability to the truck because the scout keyword to the truck because the truck is a dedicated transport. So you can't do it to any other transports, only dedicated ones, which are simply the Orc truck. So Scott Zod can do that. That'd be a cool little tech thing to do. 100-point win there. I'm just having a feeling Nick just really, really outplayed him because Death Guard had to still have some answers to Dread Mob. Having a lot of bodies in OC really does help though, because everything of value has to come out to kill them, and then you can simply respond. And they're pretty much they have nothing to do with Ludas once Ludas to get out of the trucks and start shooting them. They just have to take the damage and die. And then the Ludas get indirect fired. So in his 4th game, he ended up going into the Thousand Suns with the double Mutilex Vortex beast. Or is that what this is? Yeah, it sounds like it. So we have T-Suns still making their appearance. So even though T-Suns got nerfed into dust, they're still around just because they're so potent and killy. So we have Ahriman on Disc of Zeech, an Exalted Sorcerer, another Exalted Sorcerer, and 2 and 3 Infernal Masters, Magnus the Red, 2 units of 3 units of Rubric Marines of just basic 5-man unit, 2 Mutilex Vortex Beasts, Occultist, and then a Zangor Enlightened. Gosh dang, guys, this list is so elite. And the fact that this person can still run this list and just play it like that is just outrageous. Their double movements and everything just being able to be so killy must be just so effective on here. One thing as an Orc player that you really, really like is pressure. So maybe more like the truck MSU spam like we've seen would be more of a thing. But just giving him a bunch of bodies is something that Thousand Suns can really much deal with, right? Their rubrics have flamers. Their rubrics have devastating potential. They really just deal with the fact that you have all these bodies and not like any transports to deal with inside of them. So they're choosing their engagements and just kind of blowing you away. So normally you're like, well, I have stuff that I can kill these things. Yes, but because they can choose their engagements means that they're killing you first. And then they're kind of just picking you apart and dwindling you, which is one of the weaknesses I've seen to Dread Mob as well. If you're playing into like Hypercrypt Necrons, and they're playing against like a Silent King with, let's see, a group of boats around you or a monolith near you. The fact that you can choose your engagements against Dread Mob and kind of shoot away our assets, just like kind of with other Orc detachments, but more so in Dread Mob, it hurts because we can't really run around and punch you off where you're at once you're staged up. We kind of have to readjust to try to shoot you again. So in this case, them picking their engagements and T-Suns and shooting you, and then you having to re-engage them again and then running around shooting you again means that they're just kind of dwindling or break you apart. So you can see it was a tough loss there. Then we go on to his because you really just want to pressure Thousand Suns, right? So you're wondering how to do it. The truck spam works really well to them because they can't really pop your trucks, and then they don't have like a combined arms aspect to them. All they have is Magnus that can do that. So let's see. Then we have into his last game. So his last game, he goes Adaptive Sororitas with the Bringers of Flame. So we have the Canonist, a Dialogus, and then Morgan Vol, followed by 1 Sisters of Battle unit, 2 Emulators, 3 Castigators, 1 unit of Dominions, and then 2 Exorcists. Love how annoying Exorcists are. Paragon Warsu, 2 units of Seraphim. So very cool that this sisters list isn't like bringing, I guess, the what's this thing? I'm having a brain fart. How am I having this? The Triumph of St. Catherine. Gosh, I don't know. I'm so dumb. I have been seeing a lot of these emulators, triple castigators and Exorcist. Sorry, all over the field. It seems like Sisters of Battle, if you're going to going into them, just expect they're going very heavy on their cross-firing of tanks and support fire from each other with just some little like units all over the battlefield to kind of help them shoot this is what you should expect. Sisters are one of those other armies that you do just need to pressure as well and hold them back. If you let them push you back with their little cheap units and dropping flamer girls down and whittling you away and then shooting you as hard as they can with their miracle dice, as an orc player, then you're just getting demolished. So MSU is the name of the game into sisters. If you're too valuable, then they can try to just focus fire you. They hate when you're in a bunch of battle wagon spam, a bunch of truck spams. They don't really like that. Sure, can they pop one? Yes, but then the other ones are still getting down the field. That's why something like a Big Mac would actually work in this case. So he did have a Big Mac, he did have a single battle wagon, and then he does have a bunch of units that are all over the field. And then, of course, the looters can actually shoot away sisters, shoot away the vehicles when they get a chance to actually get involved. Not an easy game. Nonetheless, like typically not an easy game. I mean, like sisters are like an easy matchup because they do want to meet you in the middle and bang it out sometimes. But if you just get too much momentum early all over across the field at once, you can just diminish them, because even a hurt orc unit can like just delete sister units, because typically sister units are like, oh well, I got a good armor save, and orcs are like, yeah, but I just got a lot of hits, a lot of wounds, so here you go, and you're only one wound, oops, you're dead. So shout out to him for a 90-point win there, and shout out to Nick for his 3 1-1 Dread Mob list, which is pretty much Ludas mixed with 2 bricks of boys and a whole bunch of Gretchen with a little bit of flash get support in a battle wagon. You know, very unique style right there. It is DACA. He did bring DACA here. He has flash kits for shooting, Ludas for shooting, but then he still brought the boys, and I like that the boys have an actual Big Mac in them. And then one of the other boys unit is just a simple war boss, right? So put it in reserve. You can just kind of have it go out first and try to hope to get stuck in a fight. I like that it wasn't too much over investment. 160 points for a boys unit and then a war boss. A lot of those see a lot of pressure, a lot for enemies to try to like dislodge from a certain side of the battlefield. So I hope to see more of that, where people are just like, I'm fine with bringing a 20-man unit to boys and maybe just one character, because you don't always have to pay for a bunch of characters. You could, though, of course, give the mech into the boys unit when you want to give them the button. Do I think you always want to do it? You know, it depends, right? It depends on what the rest of your list is. But you can also just use the single mech to do actions by himself as well, right? So it's up to you. Do you want to give the button to the boys? Well, it depends on the matchup, right? So nonetheless, shout out to Nick Robert Moore for his Dread Mob. Whoa! So with that being said, that is where the tide and the momentum has swung. Warhorde and Dread Mob have risen up with the point changes as well. So as for what the orc players are feeling, and shout out to Arcane Asylum whoa for the wall tactic memberships, because we are gonna come with some new content for that. So of course, anybody who is a member or supporting us, thank you very much, because we are focused on you right now and hope to bring you some new content in the future. But as for the list that we covered today, it's kind of like Orcs going back to the basics when it looks at what happened with Joshua Colward's undefeated list. Truck spam, Beast Snaggle Boys, Warhorde, Gas, boom, just doing what we do, back to what we do in a reliable way for a good amount of point cost. Do I think it's easy to replicate? Absolutely not. There's definitely still matchups you have to worry about. If you're going to go out there and go into guard, they're going to be able to put layers of you and hold your trucks back and then pop you effectively and clear the chaff inside of it. If you're going into Death Guard, sorry, because that was Astral Time I said first. You're going to Death Guard, they're going to be stacked their defensive durability buffs to where you might not be able to actually break their back on the wall turn, meaning that they'll dwindle you away over time with their lethal and their volume of maybe Flamer Overwatch and indirect fire. There's just different matchups that could still be hard for orcs to deal with. Nonetheless, we do good into the vast majority of just basic matchups with that archetype, and then it comes to you as the pilot to really handle it, right? To understand where to stage, when to call the wall, how to really pile and consolidate, how to really choose what to kill and what to score. It really comes down to the pilot when you're an orc. So high ceiling, really low floor. When you're playing something like a truck list, you're playing just a really fair, straight up version of 40K. Therefore, yes, of course, you can just look at the list and think that you're going to copy it, but it's not going to work that easily, okay? This is something that Orc players just need to know going forward that whenever we look at these lists, to help just give you this like an archetype that you can look at and then kind of structure based off your preferences. So just like we've seen with our second list with Roberts, is that when he made a Dread Mob list, he really liked the Ludas, but he really seemed like he enjoyed playing with boys and big bricks of 20 boys, as playing the OC game, the primary game, seemed to be the name of the game for him. Therefore, he stuck to that and found success in that. So I think you should definitely do whatever suits you, but just know that around here, it's about them wall tactics and being cunning, but also brutal, right? So if you haven't yet, like and subscribe. We'll be back on Friday. We're going to be talking about Titanic and Walker units. And of course, check out our paint competition and anything else we do. We have the Discord, Facebook. Check it out, and check out our objective markers, everything that we have in the description. Thank you for supporting us. And of course, there's always one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we knock your teeth out.